Good afternoon, everybody. I thought that I would do this topic. As you see, it may be a controversial subject, and being a certified lactation counselor, some may not agree with this discussion or this video. And so, if you are a person who is absolutely no formula whatsoever, kind of person, you may not want to watch this video. So I want to talk about something that I think is really important to talk about, because we can see more and more that moms really struggle with breastfeeding, and the breastfeeding rates really decline after birth. Many moms go into wanting to breastfeed, but by 3 months have had to either quit altogether or have begun partial breastfeeding. So I decided to make this video basically to give those moms tips on how to successfully breastfeed partially, or to how to successfully partially breastfeed, however you want to word that. So this is going to be sort of talking about that. Let me see if I can control this. Does it look like it? Let me put it behind my ear. So I'm going to give you some tips on how to breastfeed partially and to be successful in it, because many of us, we don't want to give up breastfeeding, but we want to have a little break now and then. And they really struggle with being able to pump enough milk. Some do not have the money to pump, and some don't have the time or the place to pump. It is a law now that your employer has to give you a place that is not a bathroom to pump, and give you the time to do it. And also, insurances cover pumps now. Now, not all the pumps are equal. Some of the best pumps out there are probably like Medela. Their personal use pump is really popular and works very well. So does a couple of the others. I think, what is the other one? I personally gave out, when I worked at WIC, the Medelas, and I really liked them. I think they work really well, and so they are like $300 pumps. But if you can invest in a pump, that would be the pump I would invest in. Don't go and buy them used, though, because if you buy a used one, you don't know how old it is. Someone might tell you, I've just had it a year or whatever, and that's good, all in good. But the best thing to do is not to buy it used, because pumps are only good for about 3 years, which is about 3 uses. Then they start to lose suction power. They just don't power as well. So even if it's the best pump, if it's an older pump and you don't really know when it was brand new, then it probably is no longer a good pump. You just want to make sure that you have a very good pump, because you're going to need it when you're partially breastfeeding. There's 2 ways that you can do it, and the most successful way is to be able to pump. If you cannot pump, then you can still successfully breastfeed, but it's going to be a little bit different. And so what I would suggest, so let's first talk about if you were to partially breastfeed and not pump. So in that case, you need to not just go about it daily as to whatever, but choose a specific amount of time that you don't plan to feed, and stick with that specific time. And then when the other time periods you breastfeed, you got to stick with those times breastfeeding. Because what happens is, if you're one day you breastfeed at noon, or let's say every day you're breastfeeding at noon, but then one day you decide to breastfeed at 11, the milk won't be ready, or pump. But for a mom who wants to breastfeed, you need to stick within it. You have to be consistent with whether you breastfeed or you don't breastfeed, with specific time frames. So a lot of moms may choose the nights to give bottles. So after 11 p.m. they give strictly bottles, or whatever time it is, and then up until a specific point in the night. Or maybe you're a mom who says, I want more time during the day so I can get things done, or I have a toddler, whatever, so I'm going to give my bottles during the day. So you just have to be consistent with the same times every single day. And that will help so that your milk does not dry up. And also, when you notice the baby's nursing exceptionally seems more aggressive or more unhappy with the amount of milk that's in your breast, you might want to breastfeed that whole day, just because the baby is probably growing and needs to adjust your milk supply. And your milk supply is not meeting the needs, but will within 24 hours, between 24 to 48 hours, meet that baby's needs if the baby is allowed to breastfeed on the breast for as long as they possibly can, even when the breast is empty. So I would suggest at growth spurt periods to kind of be watchful and try to breastfeed those days, the whole day, just so that you can allow the baby to continue to increase your milk with him or her as they are growing. If you have a pump, whether it is a manual, just one that you push, or it is an electric, whether it's double or single, none of those things matter. But whatever time frame, if you're in an 8-hour time frame, say 11 p.m. to 7 a.m., you need to pump at least twice during that period. Every 3 to 4 hours, you want to be pumping. You do not want to leave your breasts full, because the body will then think that you don't need that much milk and it will stop making it. So if you decide to go partial and you are going to pump during the times that you don't feed. Pump during the times that you give the baby a bottle. And that will keep your supply up. That will also that will help you build a supply in the freezer, so that when there are some cases when you would rather maybe you run out of formula and you have that stock in the freezer, or whatever the case might be. Some moms choose to partially breastfeed with breast milk, and you can do that as well. How would you do that? Well, what you would do is you've got to be consistent, and you've got to pick a certain period of time, and you've got to stick with that period of time. So try to think ahead. Think about things that could happen, vacations, people come to visit, holidays, all these different things, and think about what would be the least affected by any changes like that. And you can pump instead of feed and use your breast milk for the baby. Now, some moms have trouble with getting enough milk out, and that is typically a pump problem. And my best tip so the pump problem could be that it's an older pump, or it could be that you are watching. So what I recommend is, when you are pumping, to either record your baby's cry in the beginning. Record your baby's cry, so in the beginning that kind of helps with the letdown. Have pictures of your baby around where you're pumping, or be looking at your baby while you're pumping, and not look at all with what's going on down there. Don't look at what's happening with the breast and what's coming out and what is it. Just relax, because that's what's going to make the milk flow. You can actually have 2 full breasts of milk. 2 full breasts of milk. Is that right? 2 full breasts. 2 breasts full of milk, and not be able to get a drop out because of stress or just that watching part. So definitely those are some of my tips, and I will write them below, and I will give you a website that you can go look at and check out as well that gives some good tips. I hope that helps some of you. I think that it's important to understand that you're not a failure, and that when you choose to partially breastfeed, you should not be treated like you've failed, nor should you ever feel that you have. And I honestly believe that most moms, they understand and they would agree and completely, be understanding. So it's us that we're the hardest on ourselves. So just know that you're not a failure. You have not failed. This just works better for you. Other moms, it doesn't. Partially breastfeeding does not work good for them. So if that's what works for you, that's what works for you. My motto statement, my mission statement is the best choice is not always the right choice, but the right choice is always the best choice. Now that might sound funny, but what I'm saying is the best choice is not always the right choice. What's the best choice? We know what the best choice is, breast milk, but it may not be the right choice. It may not be what's best for us and the baby. It might not be working. So let's say we choose to partial feed. The right choice, which is whatever is working for you, whatever you feel is the right choice for you and your baby, that's the best choice. Always the best choice. So I hope that helps you guys. Just knowing that, this is not an all or nothing thing. You can be successful and partially breastfeed. It's not an all or nothing thing. So I just kind of wanted to put that little video out there. I hope that it helps some of you guys. I hope that you guys have a great day and get some rest. And I will see you in my next video. Bye.